Right, the devil is defeated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are on air now, right? Yeah, we're starting the third term, right? Before I start, I would like us to give gratitude to God, right? Because you know there are certain things that we can't do on our own. Let me even say virtually everything in life, we need God's support. We need His guidance, right? You've gone on holiday, you are back, you're healthy. It's something that, with that alone, we need to gratify God. So we thank God for everything and we commit everything that we're gonna do this time into His hand to continue to guide us, to continue to give us His wisdom, to light our path and help us to be able to achieve our various objectives, right? We commit everything into His hand. So this term, as you do know, and I know you know, right, is very short. Public admin, don't worry, I will come to your side, right? But just listen to this, right? It's interesting. This is a kind of orientation for you, right? Perhaps, I don't know whether they've given you a kind of orientation. So this one is on orientation on my own part, right? Okay, guys, this term is very short, very short. You know about it. Before you know, we're already almost towards the end of July. August moves very fast, right? And you need to write the a final exam, not final this time around, internal exam, which is very close. Can either be uh, end of August, perhaps, or early September. Yeah, September, right? And by virtue of the internal exam, it's assuming that you've covered everything. It's gonna be from Genesis to Revelation. When I say Genesis to Revelation, you know what I mean? From beginning to the end. It's gonna cover the whole topics. Gladly enough, I've already covered the work for you. And I've got all your resources on YouTube. Please visit the YouTube channel and subscribe. Most of you are watching, they don't subscribe. I've got more than 160 students, if I'm not mistaken. Students, yeah, you are a lot. But ask me how many people have subscribed? 79. You see? So you need to take things serious because once you encourage me as well, I need to be encouraged. How? By you subscribing. Because it takes me time and energy for me to be making the YouTube. For example, the one I produced last week, for me to upload it last night, it took me up to 2 hours because I have to do some certain things, put the thumbnail, look for nice photograph, all those things to put. It's not easy. So you need to encourage me as well by watching and subscribing, right? Then it will move. All right. Later, as I said, no problem, right? I'm going to have perhaps a good session with you. I don't know whether it's today or I'm going to look at the timetable. They will make a change for it so that I can be able to accommodate you nicely, right? Because you are more or less like babies. You just come in, you don't know much about the college and for, right? So I need to treat you as such and yeah, accommodate you well and give you that good hospitality so that you feel at home. Right. Okay, guys, just listen later, right? This thing is interesting, project management. So level 3, like I said, I've covered the work, which is a good news, right? So what we are going to do this time is purely revision. I'm gonna bombard you with past question papers, right? I'm gonna flood your channel, your what they call it, WhatsApp, with past question papers. I'm not gonna give you just past question papers along with the memo, the answers. You study with it, and I'm not going to leave you like that. We're gonna be doing it in the class here, right? Because I want a situation whereby at the end of the day you should be able to shine. And when you are going to write your exam, you're gonna be going there like the angels. You know, the angels when they are going to heaven, they sing with confidence. Right. Okay. Now we're gonna start with the question paper that you wrote during the last exam, June. Right. Most of you did well, and most of you somehow you embarrassed me. Right. Why do I say you embarrass me? For example, at your level, you can't tell me you don't know the how the if somebody asks you in a case study to identify the stakeholders, some of you couldn't know the stakeholders, which was a kind of embarrassing. Do you understand? Stakeholders, you've done that even in the other subjects, right? That you can easily look at the case study. Then you sort out the stakeholders. Okay, that is for that. There's another place where I felt so much embarrassed again. Gantt chart. Although they were supposed to have provided you a template, right? They didn't provide you a template. Before, I was trying to be flexible, right? But when I discovered that most of you got it right, and I thought of it again that remember, we did a Gantt chart in your assignment, your task, that you don't even need a template. All you need to do is just to sort out the task. Then you just create a kind of a column, right? A column whereby you say the duration. Most of you, you did well. When I saw that my students were doing well, some of you were doing well there. I said, no, I don't have to be flexible now because you attended the same lecture. And why couldn't you reflect on what you did in your task and replicate it to excel in that specific question paper? So that was how it happened. Then there was another question, although you were not given the template, but the way the questions was asked, if you were somebody that is good in the reflection, you could, it's something that is easy. Because we started here by every time we always talk about the phases of a project. We sing with it here. Phases: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, and controlling. Is there anybody that doesn't know the phases of a project here? I even told you in the exam, I said revise it. Phases. Now you were given certain tasks to classify into various or respective phases. Do you understand? So most of you tried, and some of you as well couldn't do well there. So those are the areas that seem that really brought you down. Because when you look at those two questions that I've mentioned, the mark is tangible, reasonable. It's a good mark that when you miss it, you're gonna struggle to pass. But anyhow, that is something that is past. Now we need to look forward for something better, right? Okay. Now I'm gonna start to explain to you. We're gonna go through the question paper. I will talk to the slide. While talking to the slide, I need to explain to you why we say this is the answer. Because you see, I've got a kind of teaching methodology. When I'm revising question paper, I don't just read it and say this is the answer. Yourself need to know why that is the answer. I can use one question here, explain it for 20 minutes because I will be touching different areas. Because by virtue of that, you can be able to comprehend and know why is we say that is the answer. Okay, for example, you have this, it's a matching column, which is common, right? Most of you do struggle. I don't know why my students they struggle in matching column. Not only you, even level 4, they struggle matching columns. For example, project scope statement, right? Here you need to know what is a project scope. Project scope. Project scope, by way of conceptualization, I don't want to use words that you will not understand. By way of definition, it entails what needs to be done in a project, right? You could as well include what seems to be implied but not going to be done in the project to make it explicit. You know what I mean by explicit? To be clear. This is what I'm going to do in this project. This one I'm not going to do it. Right. For example, let's try to relate what I've just explained to the literary meaning of scope. Before you write your exam, you always say, teacher, sir, give us scope. Right? So that means you want me to tell you what you need to cover to study for the exam. Two of us. What is your name again? Berika Malaku Tombe. Huh? Tombe. You need a scope for so that you want to limit yourself within the perimeter or a certain perimeter. Focus on that. You don't want to read what is not going to come out in the exam. Right. That is why you ask of scope. Now let's relate that to project. In the same vein, project scope tells you what needs to be done. Because you don't want to do something that is not necessary. You see, when we are talking about project is you see, you need to be cost conscious. You know what I mean by being cost conscious? Because it's money that is going to be expended, it's money that is going to be used. You must make sure that you avoid wastage. Avoid wastage of time, avoid wastage of resources. How will you do that? You must stick to what is required, right? So, where can you get that? You can get it from the scope statement, right? So, now when you look at the options, so what can you tell me now? Huh? Yeah. The action whereby project sizes define and include problems and opportunities. Right. Okay. Now, network diagram. This one could be a little bit challenging to you. But if you studied very well, or if you've been listening to what I've been explaining here, network diagram, what does it mean? A network diagram is a kind of a tool in project management. It's a tool. Remember, we did tools and techniques. You must always remember tools and techniques. What do we mean by tools? It's a device that help project manager to be able to manage the project. Right. Okay, network diagram. But you know what is network? When they say network, it has to do with links, connections of things, where things are linked together, right? Right. When they say somebody say you got a good network, that means you got contacts. Do you understand? That means you got different people in different areas. Do you understand? Okay. Now that is what we mean by network. Right. So in project management, network diagram. You see, diagram, you have two concepts here, network and diagram. That diagram link the contact. Right. So in project, there's what we call relationship. Relationship. Project is about executing a task, right? Okay, in project management, there are certain tasks that are related, that can be linked to each other. For example, we got different type of relationship. We got a kind of a relationship we call finish to start, which means the preceding activity must be finished before the succeeding activity. What do I mean by the preceding? The before, right? Then the succeeding is after. For example, if you are building a house in Lambe, will you construct the ceiling before the foundation? So you can't do that. Then, okay, let's say the foundation now, right? Will you put the slab before putting the, you have to dig a trench, you have to put a concrete first, you lay the blockwork, then they got stages, right? So what I'm trying to say is there are certain things that you must do one first before the other. There are certain things or certain tasks in the project whereby you do the same time. That is what we refer to in project management. So you need to link those things together in form of a network to show the relationship. That is what network diagram does. Does it make sense to you? Right. Okay, by virtue of that, if you if you've understood what I said, so what is the answer? Okay. B is self-contained, the rest no damn use. The action give approximate cause the document. Let me see what the other what is here. Is that the end? Okay. So what is the answer? Kenneth, what is the answer? Hey, this thing is getting frozen now, man. This thing mustn't mess me up, man. It's getting frozen. Right. It's not J, it's not K, it's not deal with a critical part showing the flow. You see, that is the answer. Deal with a critical part showing the flow and relationship of all the activities of a project. That is the answer. Yeah. It deals with the critical part, right? Show, Jonga is showing the flow and relationship of activity. Didn't I tell you about that relationship just now? This is why I put this to silent, man. I wonder why my phone is not on silent. Did it stop there now? Yeah. This okay. So that is what we mean, right? It shows the relationship. Okay, let's move. Now, variance. What is a variance? Yeah, good girl. We're talking about the difference, right? For example, you set out to do a project, you've got your own estimate in terms of what you intend to spend. At a point, perhaps due to certain reasons, then the prices of things have gone up. It could be up or down. Then at the end of the day, you discover that what you end up spending is different from what you budgeted for. So that difference is what we call the variance. Hello, Zahir, do you understand what we mean by variance? Variance. The difference between the budget amount and the actual money spent in your project. Right. Before you start a project, you need to have a budget. I like that aspect in the Bible. I've told you before. You see, when I think it was Jesus Christ that made the statement, before a builder set out to build a house, he must first of all sit down to know the cost, how much it's going to cost him. Because he wouldn't want a situation where by the end of the day, he is not able to complete it if he doesn't know how much to set aside to do the project. Every time I always reflect on that one. You see? And it's a wise thing. Before you embark on any project, you must sit down and calculate how much is going to cost me. That is the budget amount or the estimate. Right. Now, when you've done your project now, or the process of doing your project, because you are not God. It's only God that said it's going to be 10 rand, it's going to be exactly. If God says something, no one can change it. Right. But you, as an estimator, you are doing your best to estimate, to calculate, right? And remember external factors that can affect. Remember when you were doing the entrepreneurship, we said there are certain external factors that can affect the business, right? The same thing with project management. They got external factors. For example, if the exchange rate between the South Africa rand and dollar change, is going to affect the cost of your project. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? For example, when you were making your estimate, perhaps the exchange rate was 15 rand 26 cents to a dollar. I want that. You see what I mean? Now, if the project happens to be for a longer duration, and you know, the exchange rate is like a pendulum, it's floating, go up and down, goes up and down. So if the exchange rate happens to change, will your estimate still be the same thing? It will not be the same. Okay, let me give you another example. If there is an inflation, you know inflation. Inflation, who knows what is an inflation? Where prices of goods and services are going up and down. Right. The estimate you made 10 years ago, okay, 10 years is too far. The estimate you made maybe 2 years, a year ago, during an inflationary period, today is not going to be realistic because the prices have gone up. When you tell a laborer, you know a laborer, he say, I'm going to pay you 150 a day. He says, that thing is long time ago. We don't get 150 a day now. It's 250 rand. Obviously, going to affect your project. Do you understand what I mean? Right. Besides that, there are certain things that could constitute variant changes between what you set out, the amount you set out to spend, and the amount you eventually spent on the project. Now, I want to explain to you these two concepts. Hello, focus. Budgeted amount and actual amount. The budgeted amount is your estimate that you decided to spend on the project. The actual is what you've really spent on the project. Does it make sense to you? Right. No, by virtue of what I've just explained, what is the answer? Yeah. It could be. Sometimes it could be lesser. It depends on this. Okay, let me put it this way. It depends on the contextual, how it is, the environment, the external factor of most places. Yeah. Another thing that can cause a variance is client requirement. The client can come to you and say, "Oh man, I thought my taste before was maybe aluminium window. Now I want to put steel." You see, the estimate gonna change at the end of the day. Or I don't want this type of ceiling, right? Even if there is a slab, I want you to put suspended ceiling. But in the beginning, there was nothing like suspended ceiling. The estimate gonna change. You understand what I mean? Or the client can come and say, "I don't have money for this again, but can we look for an alternative that is a little bit more cheaper, in terms of price, more reasonable?" You see, those type of stuff we are talking about. Right. Okay. There are a lot of factors that could uh, prompt a scope change that we eventually result into a situation of having a variance in a project. Hello, do you understand it now? Okay, so what is the answer? Huh? Variance. It's not there. And this thing, okay, let's see. I hope it's not going. I don't know why my PDF file is working like this now. You see, it's gonna be frozen. Where is it? It's frozen again. It's frozen. Maybe I need to download it, uninstall this one, and reload it. Okay, here we go. Here we go. All right. All right. Now you see it. So what is the next one? So when you see variance, then you think of difference. Yeah, think of difference. That is the key word. Yeah. So what it was the next question just now? I can't see now because this thing is frozen. Oh, crashing. The other one is crashing. Huh? Yeah. Now we're done with variance. The next one is crashing. Hey, what is this? Crashing. You know crashing. Crashing. Yeah, crash. It's not when a vehicle collide, two vehicles collide together, then you say crash. There was a time, my student, there was a question in a question paper. He said, "What do you mean by work breakdown structure?" He said, "When the work is broken down, it's fall down." Eh, when we say crashing, what does it mean? Crashing. Crashing. You know what it means in the project management? Yeah. When you make the project to be shorter in terms of duration. Yeah. Azahed, you know that one, crashing. A project that's supposed to take 3 months, then based on client requirement, the client say, "I need that thing. I want to make use of it. Can you see a way of facilitating it to deliver the project much more quicker?" Right? So you as a project manager, you should have to see what you can do. Right? For example, you have to increase the resources. You increase the resources. And when you increase the use of resources, it's money. What do I mean by that? For example, to make the duration to be shorter, where you were using perhaps 5 people before, you increase it to 10. Yeah, so that it can be quick. And you need to pay for it. Perhaps you can tell them to work night shift, right? Overtime. You can use overtime, right? To speed up the project. Crashing means speeding up the project. Do you understand what I mean? So that is what we mean by that. Right. So the option gonna be there. I hope the period is not over because I see some of you, you turn it different ways, turn this side, left and right. It's over. Okay. All right. Yeah, we're gonna continue from here tomorrow. Right? So yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 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 So